I want to bring into the conversation Marian Zablotsky, a member of the Ukrainian parliament. Mr. Zablotsky, thank you so much for joining us, particularly at this hour. It's the middle of the night, but I do want to get your reaction to President Biden's announcement after President Zelensky's presentation to Congress that he is sending more military aid to Ukraine, more anti-tank aircraft, more anti-tank weapons and more anti-aircraft weapons, more armed drones. Is this going to help you?
This is extremely welcomed, and we are extremely grateful to American people, to President Biden, to American taxpayers for supporting us. We understand that United States have their own problems, and $14 billion of aid to Ukraine still matter a lot in the United States. But here they will go the extreme way. They will alleviate suffering, and this will actually help us fight one of supposedly the biggest armies of the world, which is now severely demotivated. And of course, President Zelensky is right to call to the United States as the only country that can lead the free world and stop for the global rules written down after the World War II from changing. So after the World War II, everybody thought that changing borders by force is the thing of the past. Now this crazy man in Kremlin tries to change that. And we are at the front line of this. This has to be stopped now. So this is not only the fight about Ukraine, this is a fight about values. And we do ask for the American people and for President Biden to lead that fight.
What more do you have to say to the world when they say to you, as Cal Perry just reported, that you are making that argument that you're the front line of democracy, you're the front line against Russian imperialism, you're the front line against rules that we all agreed many, many years ago we don't break about changing borders? Why do you feel that the West is not completely embracing that and saying this is the war and we need to get into it?
Well, I think that the West has done quite a lot already, and it's very difficult for me to criticize any country for not doing enough. But I just need to say that we need to do the maximum. So here's the thing. There are a lot of dictators around the world, a lot of countries without democracies. And currently, every single one of them is watching what is the cost of actually trying to challenge the rules. Mm-hmm. What are the costs for invading other country, and how will I be punished for that? There needs to be set a precedent that the costs are all the maximum potential consequences that all the countries can do on their behalf. So we cannot return to the pre-World War II world where one country attacked other country and then they try to reach some sort of agreement about the changes in territory. Because otherwise the world will turn into chaos and we will step right into World War III one way or another.
However, there are negotiations that stop and start between Russia and Ukraine, and negotiations mean a deal. How do you feel about the idea that Ukraine may end up making some concessions in order to get peace in the face of an unprovoked invasion of your country?
Well, it's very difficult to understand what will Putin end up agreeing to and what he can agree to. What we understand now that his plan to reach some sort of agreement was non-existent before the war. He was absolutely 100% invested to his idea that he will win the country over the course of days, several weeks. And by now, in his mind, the country should have already been conquered and there was no one to negotiate with. How soon can he come to a reality that he actually needs to come to a table? He should admit that his plans have failed already. That he cannot reach what he wants with military needs is a debatable question. The question is to his mentality and how adequate he is. So I just think we will have to wait and see for that.
Let me ask you about the reports, these very disturbing reports about the attacks, the continued attacks on civilian infrastructure, including this theater in Mariupol, in which it is believed that there are people taking shelter. Do you think this changes the argument? Do you think this changes the willingness of the world to get involved in a different way when they continue to see these humanitarian, what might end up being war crimes?
Of course, and it changes the attitude of Ukrainian people as well. What you see on the ground is actually even much worse than what you can see on the video. I just returned from Kyiv a day ago, and I listened to a lot of stories from our members of parliament who help people get out from the worst affected areas. And when you do hear the stories about how refugees, those people who escaped fighting, are talking about actual violence, the rape, systematic rape, the murder of civilians, it's absolutely heartbreaking. So it's one thing, even in the video that Zelensky presented, to watch how people are being and children treated at the hospitals. Another thing is to hear the stories of violence and see videos of violence. It's actually even much worse than that. And this is something that Ukrainian nation will never forgive and will never forget for generations to come.